Prepare yourself for the clash of punk rock, politics, and your uncensored, unafraid host, Remso W. Martinez. You are about to experience the Remso Republic.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Remso Republic. I'm your host, Remso W. Martinez. Today, I've got an awesome special guest for you. He's an independent candidate running for U.S. Senate in Ohio. He's a truck driver, a Christian, a constitutionalist, a husband, and a father. I'd like to welcome to the show Scott Rupert. Scott, how's it going?
It's going good, Remso. How are you?
Oh, just another day, working for the man, all that jazz. So the last time I actually saw you, we were in Ohio. We were in Cincinnati for Free Pack. For just the listenership at home, the first time I met Scott, we were inside this giant convention hall. FreedomWorks was hosting an event, and I was part of this VIP group there of kids. They were trying to get involved in the political process and stuff. And as I'm trying to find a group of my friends, Scott grabs me by the arm, and I turn around, and Scott is a burly guy. You're a pretty muscular guy, Scott. So when you grabbed me, I looked behind me and I saw you. I'm like, oh crap, is this guy gonna mug me in the middle of this whole thing? No, instead he gave me a business card, told me he was running for Senate. And I was like, wow, this guy, he's not wearing a suit. The entire day, all I had seen are Rob Portman volunteers, all spit polished and, in their campaign Republican swagger. And then I see you there, and I'm like, wow, this is an actual person. You're running for office.
Yeah, another something to note is when you came out at the end of the event, you still saw me and my volunteers, Rob Portman wasn't there. Rob Portman's volunteers left when the time at the beginning to actually shake hands and talk to people was over. They were gone. Their table was empty when the event started. Ours was still there when the event was over, and we were still shaking hands and handing out materials as people went out the door.
Yeah, is that usually the type of reception you get when you're in the same area as the Portman volunteers?
Actually, the Portman volunteers all came over and shook hands with me, and actually they seemed to be glad I was there. One gentleman came over and shook my hand, and he said, "You need to understand I'm doing what I have to do."
I've got to vote for the lesser of two evils, man.
We'll allow him to remain unnamed.
So, Scott, for those listening who don't know you, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, there's nothing spectacular to tell. I'm just an ordinary, average American truck driver who decided back in 2008 that I was tired of listening to both parties tell us who not to vote for. And it occurred to me that an awful lot of the dissension among the electorate, the grief between the voters was created by the parties, and if we actually take the time to listen to each other, we agree on a lot more than we disagree on. And it occurred to me that in fact the Constitution doesn't give federal government the authority to address the things that we disagree on, and it was really kind of important that we, the people, come together and get control of our government again while we still have the freedom to do so. So I started by reading the Constitution, and I thought, well, this really pretty much makes it easy. It's our job to protect the Constitution. Thomas Sowell said the Constitution can't protect itself. It's our job to do that, and I'm trying to inspire ordinary, average people like myself to get involved and become a part of the process, and not just by voting. There's really nothing special to say about me. I'm just an ordinary guy going about my 60 to 70 hour week and campaigning in my spare time.
Yeah, that actually is what makes you special, Scott. I've been around enough campaigns and candidates to suss out the guys that say they're like a rag to riches story, and the guys that are just there and they're slumming it with the normal people. But I think in the past, when we've spoken on the phone, you've literally been on the road. I think the last time I spoke to you, you were actually driving for a job. I mean, you were, yeah.
I'm actually on the road now. I stopped to do this interview. I delivered in Chicago around midnight last night, reloaded out of Elwood, Illinois this afternoon, and I'm on my way back to Columbus, Ohio now with a load of Hyundais and Kias. Going back to a couple of dealers in the Columbus area. I took a load of Hondas over to Chicago, and as soon as the interview's over, I'll be back on the road again.
Rock and roll, man. Rock and roll. So you're still working full-time during this campaign. I know what Rob Portman's doing full-time. He's probably campaigning, am I right?
Oh, that would be my guess. I would say that there is certainly an advantage to essentially getting paid to campaign. I mean, I understand that isn't really how it works, but they're still getting paid to do their job, even though they're not doing it. They're most of the people who occupy the seats in Washington are out campaigning, and they're still collecting the paycheck. They're campaigning on our dime.
Exactly.
I drive a truck that requires 60 to 70 hours a week to do what I need to do and to make a living. And I get my laptop out and campaign the way I can. In another week or so, I'll be putting a GoPro on my dash and starting a campaign here in the truck, just talking to people, answering questions, doing some live stream stuff, and just trying to reach out that way. I think that most people can appreciate what it is that I'm doing, and once people begin to understand that they have to play a role in this, that I can't work 60 hours a week and still campaign and be as effective as the people who are being paid to campaign can be. So it's going to require the rank and file voters to get out and help me get the message out, and that's
Exactly.
not hard. This with social media and all the other ways that there are to get a message out, it's not very difficult for anyone to just decide they want to help and start hitting some keys on their laptops.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Technology has made campaigning so drastically different than even how it was, 10, 15 years ago. I mean, the first real social media campaign was led by Team Obama in 2008. And the last three campaigns I worked on, one of them, because our candidate was sick quite often, we primarily existed online. And then the last campaign I was campaign manager for, it was a city council race, so we didn't need to depend on it as much because you're caucusing with your neighbors and everything. But you're in the fact that you still work 60, 70 hours a week, you're going all across the state and the country, and you're an independent candidate. I mean, you're working outside the two major parties. What are some of the pros and cons of doing that?
Well, it's hard to get people to accept that it's something that can be done. Most people agree it's something that must be done. They just don't think it's possible. And to get the people who are actually familiar with campaigning to get involved for an independent candidate is very difficult. Mostly because they understand what it is that I'm up against, which I suppose the truth is that I actually don't. I mean, I've learned what I did. I did this in 2012, and we learned a lot in that process. Got almost 5% of the vote statewide on under $6,000.
Wow.
And we learned a lot about the process. We learned how to overcome some of the obstacles that the parties have put in place. And
what are some of those obstacles?
It turns out actually some of them can't be overcome. The process for getting on the ballot as an independent candidate, it takes 5,000 signatures to get on the ballot as an independent, 1,000 as a Republican or a Democrat. I won't call that unfair because I don't have to participate in a primary. I actually think that's kind of a part of the way the major parties have rigged the game to make us think that we have something to say about the outcome by telling us we can participate in a primary if we want to replace if we want to replace the establishment candidate, we can compete in a primary where it's a smaller group that we have to convince to cast a vote. But by and large, the parties decide who's going to win the primary. The process of getting on the ballot, we submitted our petitions in 2012. We submitted our petitions on the deadline, and 2 months later, a little more than 2 months later, the Secretary of State's office certified me to the ballot. Well, they didn't update their website to reflect that there was a candidate besides the Republican and the Democrat until the end of September. So none of the organizations that offer questionnaires, that offer surveys to candidates, or that give any kind of voter information knew that there was someone else out there to send those questions to. So we found the ones that we could on our own, but we didn't know that we were going to have to do that until we were pretty far into it. Now we've already contacted groups like VoteSmart and some of the others, Buckeye Firearms and the NRA, to see if those may be a little more difficult, but to at least be included in their surveys.
So were these obstacles something that you kind of saw coming? I mean, were you willing to deal with this, or was it, I'm going to run as an independent and I'll just, take the punches as I go?
Well, in 2012, it was that exactly. This was running as an independent is the only way that I see that we can actually solve the problem of the division that the parties have created. We were, in 2013, the folks in Washington did a very good job of redefining the fiscal cliff as the debt ceiling, and then raised the debt ceiling and said, voila, we've conquered the fiscal cliff. Well, the fiscal cliff is still out there. There's going to come a time when things are just going to fall apart here in the U.S. If we may not be able to do anything about it at this point, but if something doesn't change, eventually our economy is going to collapse. And when that happens, it's going to be important that we have some leaders in place who can speak to everyone without regard for party. And as long as our only choices are represented by the R and the D, or for that matter, even a libertarian, which would still be a better choice, I think. Only a portion of the people are going to listen, and I think it's important that we make a way for some leaders that everyone can listen to emerge. And I'm not saying that I am that leader. I'm just trying to open the door so that leader or those leaders can emerge. This is running as an independent is the only way I see to address that problem. And in 2000, actually started in 2009, I started building the campaign for 2010. In 2010, I didn't even succeed in getting on the ballot. And what I learned from that process is it's a lot harder to get volunteers motivated to collect signatures than it appears. A number of people said they would, but few actually did.
Yeah, that's the really weird thing about just, third party politics in general, and I typically throw independent candidates into that category. A lot of people all over the media, because I think they flirted with the idea at one point, this is supposed to be the election of the outsiders. But it's actually really hilarious because we're seeing anybody but outsiders take the outsider mantle. We have Trump, who's literally funded the establishment on both ends of the aisles for almost 2 decades now.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah, I mean, even Bernie Sanders, I hate it when he says, I'm the outsider candidate. I'm sorry, he's caucused with the Democrats on almost everything. I mean,
and while it is true that he did win as an independent, he did so by first winning the Democrat primary. So his victory as an independent was really a victory as a Democrat. He does have the I next to his name, which I have no interest in creating a party called independent. But truth be told, Bernie Sanders won as a Democrat before he won as an independent. To the best of my knowledge, I'll be the first to actually win as an independent, just straight out of the gate.
Yeah,
and I do believe we can win.
Yeah, I think this is an election where we're going to see some pretty crazy outcomes. I mean, the Libertarian Party just had their national convention recently. Governor Johnson and Governor Bill Weld are our ticket, and they're the first legitimate Libertarian Party ticket I think we've ever had. And we're seeing a lot of other people outside the two major parties pop up around the country. So these are pretty interesting times.
And I love the irony that the establishment Republicans are calling for a third party candidate.
You know what? That's I've got some things to say about that. But Scott, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. You're listening to the Remso Republic. I'm your host, Remso W. Martinez, with our special guest, independent candidate for Ohio, Scott Rupert. Everyone has an opinion, but not everybody can stand on what they say. Sometimes what we need is a record. We need people who have a history, people who've been in the trenches, and people that know what they're saying. If there's one side I can rely on, it's the Liberty Conservative. The Liberty Conservative hosts writers from all over the liberty movement, from activists to candidates, to radio hosts to pundits. Whether you call yourself a constitutional conservative, a classical liberal, a libertarian, or whatever, what matters is this. If you want liberty, uncensored freedom, 24/7, 365 days a year, you're not going to get it from any better source than the Liberty Conservative. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from our commercial break. Scott, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So right before the commercial came on, you brought up the fact that it's really funny that now it's the establishment GOP coming in pleading for somebody to run against Donald Trump in November.
Right. After cautioning us for so many years that a third party candidate is just going to keep the conservative from winning, and now they're out there trying to convince someone to run as a third party candidate. My message, that split the vote message, I've always argued that if anyone listens to what I have to say, they hear me and they believe that I am the right candidate for the job, and they choose any other, it's not me that split the vote, it's the other candidates that split the vote.
Yeah, I mean, that's the really funny thing, especially when they're like, we have to protect the conservative. When was the last time, apart from a handful of occasions, that the GOP has really pushed for hardline conservative candidates, at least Republicans that respected the Constitution? Now, I know that you're a really nice guy, Scott. You don't want to talk bad about Rob Portman, but I'm more than willing to badmouth Rob Portman because of his terrible record. This is the guy that voted for Loretta Lynch. This is the guy that voted for every type of raising of the debt ceiling we've had. This is the guy that voted for the Patriot Act. Basically, every progressive policy that the Democrats have been able to push through, Rob Portman was there for more than half of it. As
were a great deal of other Republicans. That's kind of the point, that we are not going to get conservative government of, by, and for the people by way of the Republican Party, or any other party for that matter. It's why I do this. Government of, by, and for the people requires the participation of the people, and right now we're not participating. All we're doing is voting and complaining. And I don't care if somebody decided they wanted, some ordinary truck driver like me got involved and said, well, I really want to. I think that running as a Republican candidate would be the way to go. I don't think it is. I don't think it would solve the problem. But at least get involved and try to be a part of the process. And really, the reason that I don't talk negatively about either of the other candidates is because that's not what my campaign is about. it's not about the issues, it's about politics. The video that's on my website from 2012. That's one of the last things I say. The issues aren't the issue, politics are the issue. If we address the problem of politics, the issues will work themselves out. Because once we get the Constitution into its proper place as the law that governs government, a lot of these other things will have to go back to the state and local level. And federal government will be able to do the things that it's constitutionally authorized to do much more cheaply, much more easily, and with a lot less inertia, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 110%, Scott. I mean, from everything I've seen the past couple months, you're running an extremely positive campaign. But maybe it's because I'm a little pessimistic in terms of my political experience. I'm a little bit gray behind the ears. But, you know, if we've seen anything in this election, it's that personality does trump policy. No pun intended.
Yeah. As we close in on Election Day, and we're already seeing plenty of television ads from both Strickland camps and the Portman camps, telling us what's wrong with the other guy. That's what they do.
Have they actually started attacking you specifically?
No, not me. They won't attack me. I doubt very seriously that either of them will ever acknowledge that I exist. It would be foolish of them to do so. If someone were to hear Ted Strickland say, "Wait a minute, there's another candidate,"
thank God.
In 2012, I was at all three of the televised debates. I didn't get to participate in any of them, but I was outside with the volunteers, handing out materials to people as they were going in, and then when they were coming out of the events. At the event in Cleveland, I handed a guy a flyer, or two guys that came out together. As they were coming out, I said, "Here's something to let you know about your other choice for the U.S. Senate." And neither one of them actually looked up at me as they were walking out, but they took the flyer out of my hand. And one guy said to the other, "He's got to be better than either of those two clowns."
Oh my Lord. Sometimes that's just what you need. You just need everyone else to be so terrible that they start looking at you.
And that's what I'm getting at. The Republican will tell everybody why they shouldn't vote for the Democrat, and the Democrat will tell everybody why they shouldn't vote for the Republican. All I need to do is let them know they have another choice. That's the message of my campaign.
Exactly.
The Republican has told you why you shouldn't vote for the Democrat, and the Democrat has told you why you shouldn't vote for the Republican. Let me tell you why you should vote for me.
And that's the really hypocritical thing I get with a lot of conservatives when we talk about third parties, because I have a lot of friends who are conservatives. Some of them really like the GOP, others of them are more disenfranchised. But we talk about free markets. We talk about how competition is supposed to make things better, how it's good to have choices. But when it comes to our politics, it seems like, that it's the exact opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
I said that in 2012 too. I'm the free market solution to ideological politics. the best product at the cheapest price. And and again, the reason why I do this as an independent is if I were to run as a libertarian, and I think libertarians have a much better outlook in 2016 than they have in the past, because the parties have borne out in the last 4 years what I've been saying since 2010. They don't really give us a choice; they just give us the illusion of a choice. But when you identify yourself with a party's ideology, the voters have to accept the ideology before they can accept the candidate. My message as an independent: the Constitution protects us all equally. Let's protect the Constitution. The free market, the free market is the best answer. It's really the only answer. The free market always wins, no matter how much government tries to get in the way. the extension of depressions and recessions is the result of the free market pressing against government intervention. They could go away a lot faster if government would just stay out of the way.
Preach, man. Anyway, you want to finish off before we go to commercial?
But when an initial goes up next to the name, a large portion of the electorate stops listening. And I think it's important that we get everybody listening.
You're absolutely right. So, Scott, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get the lightning round going. I'm Remso W. Martinez, and you're listening to the Remso Republic. Hang on tight. We'll be back in a minute. Folks, you know me pretty well as of now, and I'm not one to brag, but the Remso Republic is one of the fastest growing podcasts online for news and politics. If you want to advertise with us, we'd love to have you. Go ahead, email us today at remsorepublic@gmail.com and get some ad space on the show. You know you want to. Scott, are you ready?
I sure am. This is when I actually have to answer policy questions.
This is when you've got to answer not just policy, but, we'll see what's coming your way. For those of you that have never heard of Lightning Round, we're going to give Scott 5 questions. Each question, he's going to get a minute to answer. If he goes over the clock, he loses. If he wins absolute bragging rights. And sometimes all we need in life are bragging rights, right? Question number 1. In under a minute, tell us, what's your stance on U.S. participation in the United Nations? Go!
The Constitution, the 14th Amendment, states that the U.S. Treasury shall not, and this isn't, the exact words are rough for me at times, but the Constitution forbids the U.S. Treasury from funding any organization that's hostile to the Constitution, and the United Nations is. Therefore, I am absolutely opposed to the U.S. being a part of the United Nations and would love to see us withdraw.
Are you good for that? Perfect. Question number 2. Did Hillary Clinton commit a crime by using a private server to hold classified documents and not reveal it to the FBI?
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
I would say that yes, she did, and it certainly, as the Donald would say,
don't worry about it, little Marco.
Certainly does show poor judgment on her part to do so. She has violated the trust of the people at more levels than just that. All the way back to her husband's administrations, and I understand he's not on the ballot now, but they've really kind of sullied the office of president and Secretary of State, and every part of government that they've touched, they've taken something away from.
Question number 3. Is affirmative action racist by nature?
You done messed up, Aaron!
I would say yes, that it is. To say that anyone, because of their color, is somehow less capable of achieving some level of achieving any position on their own, that right there is a racist statement. I don't think that anyone, regardless of their skin color, is any less qualified to hold any position, and I think that most of us are at that place now. Like so many other things, the things tend to work themselves out. It's when governments get involved that things get kind of silly. And to answer your question, yes.
The next question, do you support a flat tax or a consumption tax?
Consumption tax all the way. You'll find it on my website that the consumption tax addresses a lot of problems. It addresses a portion of the problem of illegal immigration, because everyone who's paying taxes on the money that they spend is paying taxes. You can't dodge taxes if you're paying taxes on the money that you spend rather than the money that you earn. And I don't think that anyone should incur debt simply by performing the act of work, which is what the income tax, flat tax or otherwise, is.
All right, final question. You're in a crashing plane and you only have 2 parachutes, one for yourself and one to give. You can only give it to either Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly. Who do you give it to?
Do I have to give either one of them a parachute?
Is that your answer?
I put one parachute on my back and hold the other one in front of me and jump out of the plane.
There you go. Scott, you win this round of the Remso Republic Lightning Round. All right, so we are at the end of our show. Scott, if people want to learn more about your campaign and possibly contribute, how can they keep track of you?
ScottRupert.com is the website. Rupert for Ohio on Twitter, and Rupert for Ohio Rupert for Senate on Facebook. As I said earlier, social media is the way that we can make the campaign successful. Personally, I'm not a big fan of social media, and of course, I'm working 60 to 70 hours a week, so I don't post nearly as much as I should. But now that we're getting closer to the campaign or closer to the election, I'll be working harder to get people involved. And as I said, in another week or so, I'm gonna be starting a live stream to start getting people involved that way. Basically, you can Google Rupert for Ohio, because anything I set up from this point forward will be under the name Rupert for Ohio. I'd love to have your donations if you'd like to help. I don't think it takes millions of dollars to win an election, but it does take some money. You go to ScottRupert.com and make a donation or sign up for emails and do what you can to help me spread the message, and we can change the way politics is done starting in Ohio.
Right on, man, right on. Well, anyway, Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
I appreciate it, Remso.
Not a problem.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. You too. Best of luck in November. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for choosing the Remso Republic as your podcast of choice for today. And once again, another thank you to our special guest for calling into the show. If you liked what you heard, please go ahead and go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Podomatic, and YouTube and leave us a review. Let us know what you really thought of the show. And if you really like us, go ahead and subscribe. So every time there's a new episode, it goes straight to your device of choice. As always, I'm Remso W. Martinez. Welcome to the Remso Republic, where you're home. I'll talk to you soon.